Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink with another Halloween card making series 2020 video. I'm using one of the just released stamp sets from Simon Says Stamps Stamptember release. This is the Boo Crew. So of course I had to use it. It's adorable. So this is a huge 6x8 set, and as usual I didn't even know where to begin. Loved all the images, so I used almost all of them. I'm lining them up here using my MISTI stamping platform, and I have some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White 80-pound cardstock. And I did some, fiddling to line up as many images as possible. This was already, I have a bunch of pieces already cut down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I am stamping the images with Simon's Intense Black ink, which is Copic marker friendly. And because they're brand new stamps, I'm going to stamp them a few times to make sure I get crisp black images. And I stamped everything after, taking the time to line everything up. Why not stamp multiples? My original plan was to take a few of the extras and just put them back in the packaging to use on future cards. But I ended up doing all of them. They were just too fun not to. So I have all of the images stamped. I'm only going to show just basic coloring, and I super sped this up in editing because I don't do anything too fancy. But with all of the images, after doing the main, sort of the first one for the camera, I would go along and do all of the other stamped images with those same Copic colors, just to kind of streamline the process and make it all go a lot faster. So I started with the blacks, which for me, I like using generally cool grays to do that. If you go in, especially with Copics, if you go in with just a black marker, there's going to be no shading, there's no definition, and it's just solid black. So you lose all the detail. And depending what you're coloring, like these little cats here, if you colored them solid black, you wouldn't see their eyes, the whiskers, you know what I mean? So I like using the cool grays for that because it just gives you that little extra. And like I always do when I'm coloring with Copics, or at least 99% of the time, I go darkest to lightest. It's just a lot faster for me, a lot easier. So I did, of course, my go-to combo for oranges, especially at Halloween. So that's just the YR09, YR07, YR04. Really, really simple. Other than those grays, the grays I use the most shades of blending. But usually I keep it to 3-ish if you're just getting started with Copics. 2 is great. You learn as you go along. You figure it out as you go along, sort of a thing. But I generally stick to 3. When I want to step it up a bit, get more of that difference, more of that shading, etc., I'll do 4. Some rare times I'll do 5 different colors. But 3 is usually, I'm more than happy with that. So I did my oranges, and then of course greens. This is just my favorite little, happy color combo for Halloween, which is black or gray, and then orange, green, purple, sometimes a lot bit of yellow as well, which with this I am going to. It's just, I love the addition of purple with Halloween. Back in the day it was just orange and black, and now with all these other colors, it just makes me happy. So did the oranges, did the greens, doing the purples. And again, I did all those other sheets at the same time. So I colored a ton of images. I have no idea how long it took me. I wasn't really timing myself. Things like this, I'm either, I have something going, or I have a book, an Audible or whatever to go on, which lately, I've read them already, but having an audiobook helps. I'm back on the Outlander series. Oh, the show is amazing. The books are amazing, and now I'm listening to the audiobooks because I just love them. Love them, love them. Anyway. Did browns for the skin tones as well as the other little elements here. And again, used several, but I kept some of the darker browns for the little mummy skin tone. Used some of the lighter browns for the little witch skin tone, and then just kind of jumped around and did, the broom handle and the stems on the pumpkins and that sort of thing. So after I'd finished all of my coloring, I used the coordinating wafer die set to die cut all the images. So I just taped all of the wafer dies into place with a little bit of washi tape. And again, just kind of, just that my like mass production sort of a thing. I just went through and just did every single sheet with all the wafer dies. So die cut everything, set that aside. And then I die cut some Neenah 110 pound cardstock. I like to use that for like card bases and layers and that sort of thing. And I die cut that with one of the new Slimline Marquee wafer dies. So it die cuts the rectangle and all those the series of holes, which is really fun. So I die cut those for my card friends. And again, when I kind of first started this, I was like, I have no idea what my like game plan was other than to make a Slimline card. And then I realized I could easily make 4 cards. But if you don't do the way I do the inside, you could use those as card fronts as well. I could have made 8 cards easily with all these, but I settled with 4. So I would just kind of figure out a little layout. Laid out the images. I had colored the great big sentiments that are in the set too that are really fun. And then the little companion sentiments, I just white heat embossed onto black cardstock and trimmed those down. And then I just figured out the layouts, just laid out all little elements until I had filled each little marquee rectangle here. And then adhered everything into place with some craft tacky glue. So I've got 4 card fronts. And then to frame that, I have the new bubble wrap stencil in the Stamptember release. There's a few great big stencils. And I picked this one, and I am going to just hold it in place with some purple tape. I'm using a wafer die. I'm going to use the new Slimline Nested Rectangles wafer dies. Of course I am. I'm so excited about all the new Slimline stuff that companies are coming out with. They're fun. So I use that just to give me a visual guide, and I'm just taping the stencil to my cardstock. This is orange peel cardstock, and I'm going to blend orange peel ink right over it. I just kept the cardstock as one piece because I'm going to be die cutting 2 rectangles from it because I'm going to make 4 cards. And the center area I'm just going to keep as scraps to use for die cutting, etc., down the road. It was just easier keeping everything together. So I'm just going to blend the ink over this stencil. Once I'm happy with it, I can flip the cardstock around to the other side, tape the stencil into place, and then just repeat the process. Like super simple, super easy. I'm not worried about the kind of mess there at the top because again, I'm going to die cut this with this large rectangle wafer die. So I blended all of that. And the reason I chose the orange peel, and then in a second I'm going to use blue violet cardstock, is Simon released more Slimline envelopes with this release, which again made me very happy. So I have orange peel envelopes and blue violet envelopes. So after I did the cardstock, I have one of the Slimline orange peel envelopes. And because it's an envelope, it is larger than the stencil. So all I did was, again, tape the stencil into place. I masked off the area where the stencil ended, blended the ink over it, and then because of this type of design, it's super easy to just line up. So I just moved it over, lined it up, used the tape just to hold the stencil and the envelope in place, and then quickly blended over that little exposed area. So now the envelope has the same pattern. So I did that for 2 envelopes, and then I'm just repeating the process now on blue violet cardstock with blue violet ink, because I'm also going to use the blue violet envelopes. So exact same process. I just clean the stencil off in between the colors, and then I'm just using Simon's colorful blending brushes that I keep for the color of the brush kind of determines, like the handle determines what colors I'll use with it. And then in between colors, I just rub my brushes onto a microfiber cloth. I rarely, if ever, wash my brushes with this. It's just hardly ever necessary. I find wiping on the microfiber cloth does the trick. And then also the scrap paper, like I'm just working the grid paper. So before if I do switch between colors, I either use similar shades with the same brush, or I will use, like I did here, different brushes for completely different colors so you don't end up with a muddy mess. So follow this process. Again, sped it up in editing, but didn't take very long. So I've got my envelopes decorated, so they're all matchy-matchy, and I've got my backgrounds that I die cut with that largest wafer die from the Slimline Nested Rectangles. And you can see it's just slightly smaller than the standard size I do for Slimline cards, which these cards are 8.5 inches by 3.5. They were pieces of Neenah 110 pound cardstock that I cut down to 7 inches by 8.5 inches. Scored it at 3.5, so they're 3.5 by 8.5. And then here's where I adhere all of these little elements as well as the other sentiments to the inside of the cards. So you can see like these totally could be card fronts as well. So when you stamp multiples like this, you can end up with just tons and tons. But I love the little scenes that I ended up creating on the inside too. They're just fun. So adhered all those to the inside of the cards. And then for the outsides, I used Big Mama foam tape on the back of the Marquee rectangles. So this just gives me a little bit of dimension without being too bulky. And then I'm going to adhere the stenciled rectangles directly to my card base with my craft tacky glue. And once I've got those adhered to sort of frame my main images, I can then peel off the backing from that foam tape and then pop those card fronts into place. And as usual, you could definitely stop here, but I decided, and I was going to stop here, but then as usual, I had the itch to add some form of bling. I was like, it needs glitter. So what I ended up doing is I it stays on my desk, my Tonic Glitter Gloss Aqua Shimmer Pen. I did this first. Normally, I do all my Copic coloring, and more often than not, I'll add my white gel pen highlights. But I didn't add the white gel pen highlights. One, I still hadn't made up my mind whether I wanted to, and I'm glad I didn't. Because if you add white gel pen highlights, and then you go back in with something like this glitter gloss pen, it dissolves the white gel pen, and you'll just end up either with a smeared mess, more often than not, or it just kind of disappears. It's because it's water-based. So if you want to add anything like this glitter gloss or something like Glossy Accents, Nouveau's Crystal Glaze, those sorts of things, you add those first. Then if you want to go in after everything is dry and add white gel pen elements, little highlights, little dots, texture, whatever, then you can do that. But if you do the white gel pen first, that's what you add, and then add this glitter gloss or Crystal Glaze, etc. on top of it, it will dissolve the white gel pen. Just little PSA there. So I added a bunch of glitter, mostly like to the sentiment and then like the moon and stars, and then just different little random elements of all these little characters. And then once that was dry, that's when I went in with the white gel pen, and you can go right over it. So you can draw the white gel pen right over the crystal Aqua Shimmer pen. You can also, if it's completely dry, you can draw a white gel pen over top of Glossy Accents or Nouveau's Crystal Glaze. Again, you just got to make sure it's dry. You definitely don't want to be dipping a gel pen into Glossy Accents when it's wet. You'll destroy your pen. So hopefully that helps. But yeah, added the little white highlights to everything, and as always, it just gives it that extra something. So just random dots and lines, and I was happy with it. And as always, turn the flashlight on my phone so you guys can kind of get a video just how shimmery and sparkly this is. It's so fun. Love it. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I will have a supply list, and I will link to all of the supplies I use, so you can check that out below if you are interested. I will also link to the Stamptember release, which is massive. As of filming this voiceover, I haven't done a release and review video yet. I'm still waiting on some of the products. We'll see what happens, but we'll just see. Trying to catch up and I'm doing like everything out of order and 5 things at once, but this was a lot of fun. I hope you guys enjoyed these. And like I said, I'll have the info in the description box below the video for you to check out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, subscribing, thumbs upping, commenting, all that fun stuff. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.